I knew something was wrong before I even turned off the truck. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was the way my stomach tightened before I even made the curve up the hill, but the second my headlights caught that stretch of road, I hit the brakes so hard my coffee dumped straight into the cup holder. My gravel driveway was gone. Just gone. In its place was a fresh strip of black asphalt, dark and smooth like it had been pawed that morning, and instead of running where it had always run for nearly 20 years, it curved hard to the west and disappeared toward my neighbor's construction site like somebody had erased my entrance and redrawn the map. I just sat there with both hands on the wheel staring at it. Then I laughed, not because it was funny. Because sometimes when something is so bold, so unbelievably arrogant, your brain doesn't know what else to do. I remember saying out loud, "You've got to be kidding me." For context, my name's Wyatt Mercer and I own 28 acres outside Bitterroot Valley, Montana, tucked against a ridge where the mountains catch sunset in a way people from out of state love taking pictures of. It's good land, steep in places but useful. Half timber, half open hillside, and underneath a section of the slope, there's gravel deposits I lease to a local aggregate company. It's been my place for a long time. Quiet, predictable. The kind of property where you know every bend in the fence line and every creek bed by memory. The driveway matters. It's the only clean access to the county road. And technically, a small stretch of it cuts across the edge of the neighboring parcel under a recorded easement from 1984. 200 and some feet. Legal, permanent, documented 6 ways from Sunday. Everybody respected it, for decades. Then Derek and Allison Calloway moved in from Bellevue, and I'm telling you now, that's when everything shifted. Their place had been owned by an older ranching couple forever. Good people. Never had one issue. We'd wave from the road, swap weather complaints, occasionally borrow equipment. Then they retired, sold the property, and 6 weeks later Derek and Allison rolled in with matching SUVs, contractors, architects, survey stakes, and a Pinterest board worth of expensive ideas. Their plan was luxury vacation cabins, mountain modern style, big windows, outdoor soaking tubs, the kind of thing marketed to people wanting an authentic Montana escape with imported stone countertops and a $600 fire pit. Fine, not my business. First time Derek introduced himself, I was out with my tractor smoothing washout from spring runoff. He walked over smiling, hands in his pockets like we'd known each other forever. "Wyatt, right? Derek, just wanted to say hi." Friendly enough, he asked about snowpack, road maintenance, winter plowing, then he pointed casually toward the driveway. "So this stretch here, you maintain all of it?" "Yep, and it cuts through our corner?" "Recorded easement," I said. "Been there decades." He nodded. "Oh yeah, I saw something in closing paperwork, just curious." Then he smiled again. "Beautiful property, man," and drove off. I didn't think much of it. That was my mistake. About a month later, I had to head into Helena for 2 nights to deal with equipment paperwork and meet with the gravel lease guys. Nothing major. Left Wednesday morning, came back Friday evening, and found asphalt. Fresh enough the edges were still dark, my gravel shoulder buried, my entrance rerouted. And tire tracks from construction, trucks cutting through where my driveway had been. I grabbed my phone and called Derek. He answered on the second ring, cheerful, like we were discussing barbecue plans. "Wyatt, hey, what happened to my driveway?" Silence for half a beat. Then, "Oh yeah, we paved the access road." "You paved over my easement." No, he said fast, almost laughing. "We upgraded everything. Looks a lot cleaner now." We rerouted around the side to improve traffic flow for contractors. "My driveway isn't contractor overflow. You still have access. Not on the legal route." That changed his tone immediately, not yelling, just colder. "Well, our paving crew had equipment scheduled. This made more sense." "For who? For everyone?" "No, for you." A pause, then he sighed. "Wyatt, don't be difficult." That line right there, that did it. I looked at the blacktop sitting over ground I'd personally maintained for years and felt that kind of anger that goes weirdly calm. I said, "You need to fix this." He replied, "Let's be adults here. The new route is actually better." Then he hung up. I stood there in the wind listening to the line go dead. And what got me wasn't even the road. It was the assumption that because he spent money and poured asphalt and called it an upgrade, I'd eventually shrug and accept losing something that legally belonged exactly where it had always been. That night I pulled out my deed, then old easement records. Then I called Margaret Holloway. Margaret's one of those Montana attorneys everybody trusts because she doesn't waste words and she's been handling land disputes longer than some judges have been practicing. By noon the next day I was sitting in her office while she spread maps across her desk. Her finger traced the recorded easement, then she leaned back and looked at me over her glasses. Well, she said, he picked a bad hill to die on. Thought so. He can't relocate this. Even if access still technically exists. Wyatt, this isn't a suggestion, it's deeded access tied to location. She tapped the map. This route, this line, that pavement is obstruction. I remember exhaling so hard it felt like I'd been holding my breath for 24 hours. Margaret drafted a formal demand. 10 days, remove the asphalt, restore original grade, repair drainage, return the easement exactly as documented. We sent it certified, and for maybe half a day. I thought Derek might realize he'd crossed a line and back down. Then the reply came, not from Derek, from a law office in Seattle. And the language was exactly what you'd expect. They called the new route a materially superior access solution. Claimed Derek had enhanced value. Suggested formalizing an amended agreement. And somewhere around page 3 they basically implied I should appreciate the improvement. I read it twice, then handed it to Margaret. She skimmed one paragraph, snorted under her breath, and said, "Well, that's expensive nonsense." I laughed. She didn't. Then she picked up her pen. "Let's file," and that's exactly what we did. Because while Derek was pouring concrete and drawing up rental brochures and acting like Montana land worked however he wanted, he forgot something simple. Some roads aren't just dirt. Some lines aren't just lines. And some people mistake quiet for weak right up until the moment they realize they've pushed too far. And Derek Calloway had just started learning that lesson. Over the next few weeks, I learned something I probably should have known already. People can justify almost anything when there's enough money riding on it. Derek didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, didn't even pretend to care. His contractors kept coming and going from sunrise till dark, heavy-duty pickups, flatbeds loaded with timber, concrete deliveries grinding up and down that fresh blacktop like they owned every inch of it. From my porch, I could hear backup alarms echoing through the valley, and every single time I heard tires roll over that paved stretch, my jaw tightened a little more. Because that wasn't just road. That was my access, my easement, my legal route to my own land. And now every contractor in western Montana was using it like an entrance to Derek's investment property. A few days after we filed, I caught Derek standing near the property line talking with one of his foremen. I walked over, calm. Hands in my jacket pockets, he turned and smiled like we were neighbors discussing weather. "Morning. You got Margaret's demand." "Sure did." "And," he shrugged, "my attorney says your concerns are exaggerated." "My concerns?" He nodded toward the paved road. "Wyatt, come on, you can still get through." "That isn't the point." He smiled again, that tight, polished smile he always used when he wanted to sound reasonable. "Look, we're building 6 cabins. We needed reliable access for deliveries. Your gravel lane was rough and inefficient. I maintained that road just fine for 20 years. For you, maybe." That hit exactly the way he meant it to. Then he leaned a little closer. "You're looking at this emotionally. We improved it. It's cleaner. It's more usable. This helps property values all around." I stared at him. And honestly, I almost laughed, because there it was, the whole thing. He truly believed spending money gave him authority. Like Asphalt somehow outranked recorded land rights. I said, "You buried a legal easement under your contractor road." He spread his hands. "Temporary inconvenience. You planning to remove it?" "No, just flat, simple, like ordering lunch." Then he added, "And if we're being practical, eventually you'll probably appreciate it." I looked right at him and said, "That confidence is gonna cost you." He smirked. "We'll see," then walked off. Margaret got us into court faster than I expected. Turns out judges in Montana tend to take land access seriously, especially when paperwork is clear. Still, legal timing is legal timing. So while we waited, Derek kept building. Cabin frames went up, massive beams, stone deliveries, landscaping crews, and every time his trucks rolled over that paved stretch, the runoff channels on the side got worse. The original gravel had been shaped for drainage. The asphalt changed the slope. Spring melt pooled weird. Water started cutting new channels down the shoulder. By the 3rd week, I had standing runoff chewing through a lower section of my turnout, and Derek still acted like he'd done me a favor. One afternoon, my gravel lease foreman, Nate, pulled in and shut his truck off. He looked toward Derek's construction site, then looked at the road, then whistled. "Did he seriously pave over your easement?" "Yep." Nate shook his head. "City people." That made me laugh harder than it should have. Then he got serious. "You taking this all the way?" "Absolutely." "Good." He looked toward Derek's cabins. "He's moving fast because summer rentals mean money. And he was right, that wasn't landscaping, that was pressure. Derek needed those cabins ready. Every delay cost him, every week mattered, which explained why he gambled. He figured if construction moved far enough before caught, nobody would force him to undo expensive infrastructure. And honestly, maybe in another state the gamble works, but Montana's different. People out here understand land, boundaries matter, paperwork matters, and if your deed says access crosses that exact stretch, then that exact stretch matters. Court day finally came 9 weeks after Asphalt showed up. Small county courtroom, wood benches, quiet. Judge Samuel Reeves walked in wearing reading glasses and the kind of expression that suggested he'd heard every version of land dispute nonsense over the last 30 years. Margaret laid everything out clean. Recorded easement, survey maps, historical maintenance, photos before, photos after, drainage damage, timeline. Derek's attorney flew in from Seattle. Shop suit, expensive watch. Talked for 15 minutes about efficiency, equivalent access, infrastructure enhancement, mutual benefit. Used phrases like modernized route optimization. At one point he actually said, the defendant meaningfully improved plaintiff's ingress conditions. Judge Reeves lowered his glasses, looked at him, then looked at Margaret, then back down at the easement map, and asked one question. Counsel, does the deed specify location? Seattle attorney hesitated. Yes. Fixed location? Yes. Then why was it paved over? Silence, actual silence. Derek shifted in his chair. Attorney tried again. Our position is that equivalent access. Judge cut him off. I didn't ask about equivalent. Room went dead quiet. He tapped the map. This route exists by deed. It was altered without consent. Then looked straight at Derek. Did you authorize paving? Derek swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. Knowing this easement existed? Yes. Judge leaned back, didn't raise his voice, didn't dramatize, which somehow made it hit harder. Then this is straightforward, he ruled immediately. Easement location protected. Asphalt constituted obstruction. Drainage damage documented. Defendant had 14 calendar days to remove pavement, restore original route, and return access exactly as recorded. Failure to comply would authorize me to restore access myself and recover cost from Derek. Simple, clear, final. Outside courthouse, Margaret tucked papers into her briefcase. Well, I asked. She smiled. I'd start counting days. Derek came down courthouse steps behind us. His attorney beside him. He looked irritated more than worried, like somebody inconvenienced him. He stopped 6 feet away. This is unnecessary, Margaret answered before I could. No, this was preventable. He ignored her, looked at me. You really want heavy equipment tearing everything apart? I wanted my driveway. The paved route works. Court disagrees. He gave this tired little laugh. You're making this personal, and I'll never forget saying, no, Derek. You made it personal when you buried my access while I was out of town. His jaw tightened. Then he turned and left. 14 days. I watched everyone. Day 3, nothing. Day 5, nothing. Day 7, his contractors were still hauling lumber. Day 10, they installed exterior stonework. Day 12, landscaping crews planted decorative spruce along the new asphalt shoulder. That one actually made Margaret laugh. He's planting trees on top of a court order. Day 14 came and went. Nothing changed. The asphalt stayed exactly where he put it, which told me everything. He thought I wouldn't actually do it, thought court orders were leverage, thought I'd blink. Morning of day 15, I woke up before sunrise, coffee, boots, cold mountain air, and drove to town. Danny Alvarez was already waiting. Danny runs excavation jobs all over Ravalli County and handles equipment like he was born inside a cab. Good guy, doesn't talk much. He looked at me and asked, "You sure?" I handed him the order. He read half the page, nodded. Yep. Margaret met us at the property, camera ready, folder in hand, and because we planned this right, county sheriff's office had already been notified. Deputy Morgan rolled in 15 minutes later. Friendly, calm, he looked at paperwork, then said, "Everything appears in order." That was all I needed. Danny fired up the excavator, and the sound echoed off the hillside. Steel bucket lifted, swung. Paused above that perfect, smooth asphalt Derek loved so much. Then came down, hard, crack. First hit split it clean. Blacktop buckled like breaking ice. Second pass tore up a full section. Chunks flipped into the dirt. Base layer peeled back. And suddenly all that polished, expensive paving started looking exactly what it really was, temporary. Temporary. That was the first thing that hit me watching chunks of black asphalt peel upward into the morning air. For weeks, Derek had treated that road like a finished statement. Like once concrete and money touched the ground, the conversation was over and everybody else would just adapt around his plans. But asphalt looks a whole lot less permanent when a steel bucket tears under it and lifts it in pieces the size of kitchen tables. Danny worked with calm precision, slow and methodical, never rushed. The bucket came down, bit into the edge, rolled under the paving, and lifted. Crack. Tear. Another clean section peeled back, then another. Fresh blacktop gave way to crushed stone. Crushed stone gave way to packed dirt. And underneath all of it was the old grade I recognized instantly. The original line. My line, the route that had been there long before Derek ever saw a real estate listing. Margaret stood off to the side, documenting every step, snapping photos, checking timestamps, occasionally glancing up over her glasses like she was enjoying herself a little more than an attorney usually should. Deputy Morgan leaned against his cruiser sipping coffee like this was just another Montana morning, which honestly, in a strange way it was. Nobody yelled, nobody panicked. No drama, just the clean sound of heavy equipment correcting a very expensive mistake. About 40 minutes in, Danny exposed the first stretch of gravel shoulder we'd built years back. I saw the drainage slope exactly where I remembered shaping it after a rough spring runoff maybe 7 or 8 seasons earlier. And weirdly, that got me more than the asphalt itself. Because when you spend years taking care of land, grading it, clearing brush, patching washouts, checking culverts after storms, the ground starts feeling familiar in a way that's hard to explain, like muscle memory. Like you know where things belong without thinking. Seeing it uncovered again felt less like revenge and more like setting something back where it should have been. Then I heard tires, fast. SUV coming hard up the lane, Derek. He slammed to a stop so suddenly gravel sprayed from under his wheels. Driver's door flew open and he came out hot. "What the hell are you doing?" Danny didn't even pause. Margaret stepped forward. "Court-authorized restoration." Derek ignored her. He looked at me, face red. "You can't tear this up." "I can. That paving cost thousands. You had 14 days. You're destroying private property." I held up the signed order. "You had 14 days. He snatched the copy from my hand and scanned it like somehow the words had changed overnight. Then Allison got out too, and she looked genuinely stunned, not angry, stunned, like she truly believed nobody would ever force them to undo anything. Derek pointed at Danny. "Turn that machine off." Danny gave him one quick look, then kept working. Steel bucket down, lift, crack, another slab rolled free. Derek shouted louder, "This is insane." Deputy Morgan finally pushed off the cruiser. "Sir," Derek turned. "She's documenting vandalism while he destroys our road." Deputy Morgan took another sip of coffee and said, calm as ever, "No, sir, they're executing a court order." That landed hard. You could actually see it hit him, the realization. This wasn't negotiation anymore. This wasn't lawyers trading letters. This wasn't him explaining improvements. This was happening right in front of him, and nobody was stopping it. For a second, he looked at me like maybe I'd back down if he pushed hard enough. Then his voice dropped, cold. "This isn't over." And I said, "No, it could have been over 2 weeks ago." He stared. Then Danny lifted another huge section of asphalt and dropped it into the debris pile. That sound echoed across the hill, and Allison quietly pulled Derek back a step. By noon, most of the paving across my easement was gone. By mid-afternoon, every bit of blacktop covering my route had been removed, base layer stripped, drainage corrected, grade restored, and by sunset you could already see the old shape of the driveway again like it had been waiting under there the whole time. Over the next 2 days, Nate brought fresh gravel from the quarry. We spread it, compacted it, rebuilt shoulders, reset drainage channels. By the end of day 2, I drove my truck straight up the original easement and parked exactly where I always had. Smooth, solid, like none of it had ever happened. Almost. A week later, Derek filed suit. $12,000, property damage, destruction of improvements, loss of project efficiency. And if I'm being honest, that filing made me laugh so hard Margaret had to wait for me to calm down before we could even talk strategy. Court took less than 20 minutes. Judge Reeves barely entertained it. He reviewed his prior order, looked at Derek, then asked one question. "Did you comply within 14 days? "No." "Were plaintiffs authorized to restore access?" "Yes." "Dismissed." That was it. Then he awarded my legal fees, plus $2,800 for gravel replacement and drainage repair tied to the construction damage. Derek looked physically sick, and maybe part of that was money, but I think most of it was something else. Control. That whole project had been built around momentum. Fast construction, big spending, pushing through, making decisions first and expecting everybody else to adapt. And for the first time since he bought that property, momentum hit something solid, a boundary, a line, an actual consequence. Summer rolled in. His cabins eventually opened. Nice-looking places too, I'll give him that. Expensive, booked pretty well, and for a while things got quiet. No conversations, no waves, no eye contact. Exactly how I preferred it. Then late one evening in August, I was sitting on the porch with iced tea watching sunset hit the ridge when headlights rolled slowly toward the easement. Derek's SUV. He parked near the fence, sat there a minute, then stepped out and walked over, hands in pockets, no attitude, no lawyer smile, no fake friendliness, just tired. He looked down the driveway, then said quietly, "I should have left it alone." I didn't answer. He nodded once, almost to himself. I thought if I solved the access issue first, everything else would move easier. I finally said, "It wasn't yours to solve." He gave this small humorless laugh. "Yeah, I know." Then he looked back toward his cabins. "You ever spend so much money on a plan you stop seeing what's right in front of you?" I thought about that, then said, "Sometimes." He nodded, walked back to his SUV, and drove off. That could have been the end. Honestly, maybe it should have been. But a month later, something happened with one of his guests, and the sheriff got called out again. And let's just say Derek somehow managed to drag me into another mess I absolutely did not ask for. And that one got even uglier. So tell me what you think. Was Derek just entitled and arrogant from day one? Or did he genuinely convince himself he was improving things and went too far? And when somebody crosses a legal line on your own property, would you have waited like I did, or brought in the excavator a whole lot sooner? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you've ever dealt with neighbors who thought money mattered more than boundaries, hit subscribe, because trust me, this wasn't the last time that Hillside turned into a courtroom.